As we reach our later years, many of us face important decisions about where to live. For many older adults, moving closer to their children or into their children's homes seems appealing. It offers the comfort of family, the security of help nearby, and the joy of seeing grandchildren regularly. However, this well meaning decision can have unintended effects. Instead of enhancing emotional closeness, it may reduce personal happiness and independence. In this discussion, we'll explore why living too close to your children could be a mistake, and how rethinking this choice may lead to a more fulfilling, self sufficient future. To illustrate this, we'll begin with a personal story that captures the core of the issue. 1. The promise of family closeness versus the risk of losing yourself. Eleanor Jones, a 68-year-old widow from the rural outskirts of Maine, was once at this same crossroads. After the death of her husband, a heavy sense of loneliness began to take root. Though Eleanor had always prided herself on her resilience and independence, the days grew longer and more isolating as she grappled with her new reality. Her daughter Susan, who lived in the city with her own young family, noticed this shift and proposed a solution. "Mom, why don't you come live with us? You'll never be alone, and the kids would love having their grandma here," Susan suggested with enthusiasm. The idea filled Eleanor's heart with warmth. She adored her grandchildren and longed for the connection that only family can provide. The prospect of being involved in their lives on a daily basis seemed like a dream come true. She imagined herself preparing breakfast for the children, reading them bedtime stories, and being a constant source of support for her daughter. This is the right choice, Eleanor thought as she packed up her belongings and prepared to move into her daughter's home. The first few months were idyllic. Eleanor loved hearing the sound of her grandchildren's laughter echoing through the house, and she found immense satisfaction in helping with household tasks and taking an active role in the family's daily routine. Each morning, she awoke with a sense of purpose, preparing meals, assisting with school runs, and engaging in the lives of her loved ones. "This is what life is all about," she often told herself, relishing the feeling of being needed and appreciated. But as time went on, a subtle shift occurred. The joy Eleanor initially felt began to fade, replaced by an unspoken sense of fatigue and frustration. What she had once cherished, being needed, had begun to feel like a burden. The role she had taken on so willingly was now consuming her entire life. The personal freedom and autonomy that she once held dear seemed to be slipping away, slowly but surely. Eleanor found herself longing for quiet moments alone, the kind of peaceful solitude she had enjoyed in her old home. She missed the freedom to choose how she spent her days, to read a book uninterrupted, or simply to enjoy a cup of tea without the constant demands of family life. The question that began as a whisper in her mind grew louder with each passing day. Is this really the life I want? 2. The gradual loss of autonomy. Autonomy, the ability to direct one's own life, is one of the most crucial factors in maintaining mental and emotional well-being, particularly as we age. For many older adults, the loss of autonomy can be a slow and insidious process, often going unnoticed until it is nearly too late to reclaim. In Eleanor's case, the erosion of her independence came quietly at first, disguised as acts of love and support for her family. What began as a temporary stay to help out with the grandchildren slowly morphed into a full-time role as caretaker and homemaker. Without realizing it, Eleanor's personal schedule had vanished, replaced by the needs of those around her. No longer did she wake up when she wished or spend her afternoons as she pleased. Every moment of her day seemed dictated by someone else's demands, whether it was preparing meals, cleaning up after the children, or ferrying them to and from school. Her life, once filled with small pleasures and quiet contentment, had become an endless stream of responsibilities, none of which seemed to belong to her anymore. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." But in Eleanor's case, it felt as though her freedom had been taken without her even noticing. She missed the simple pleasures of her old life, the quiet mornings spent tending to her garden, the afternoons with a good book, or the freedom to come and go as she pleased. Now her time was no longer her own, and the sense of control over her life had all but disappeared. Eleanor began to wonder, was this loss of independence an inevitable part of aging? Was it selfish to want more autonomy when she had everything she thought she wanted? Family, love, and a home filled with activity? But the longing for her own life, her own space, grew stronger with each passing day, and she couldn't ignore the feeling that something essential was missing. 3. The unseen burden, the slave grandmother syndrome. Eleanor's situation is far from unique. In fact, her experience is a reflection of a widespread issue that affects many older adults, particularly grandmothers, who move in with their children. What begins as a desire to help out and stay connected to family often evolves into a full-time job, one with few breaks and no clear boundaries. This phenomenon, known among gerontologists as the slave grandmother syndrome, refers to the emotional and physical burden that grandmothers often bear when they take on the role of unpaid caregivers for extended periods. Dr. Antonio Guaro, a leading expert in gerontology, has extensively studied the syndrome and its impact on older adults. Many grandmothers enter this role with the best of intentions, eager to support their families and play an active role in their grandchildren's lives, Dr. Guaro explains. But over time, the expectations placed on them grow, and the lines between helping out and becoming a full-time caregiver blur. This can lead to significant emotional strain, physical exhaustion, and even feelings of resentment. For Eleanor, the burden of caregiving began to weigh heavily on her. Although she loved her family dearly, she found herself taking on more and more responsibilities as time passed. She was always on call, whether it was picking up the children from school, preparing meals, or managing household tasks. The personal time she had once enjoyed was gone, and with it, the sense of fulfillment that came from nurturing her own interests and passions. As the demands grew, Eleanor's physical health began to suffer. She felt more tired than ever, and the emotional toll of always being needed left her feeling drained. Yet, she found it difficult to express her feelings to her daughter. How could she complain when Susan was balancing a career and raising children? Eleanor didn't want to be a burden, but the weight of her responsibilities was becoming too much to bear. 4. Rediscovering independence. A brave new path. One quiet evening, after the house had fallen still and the children were asleep, Eleanor sat by the window, gazing out at the stars. The peacefulness of the night offered her a rare moment of reflection. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to fully confront the question that had been nagging at the back of her mind. Is this really the life I want for myself? The more she thought about it, the more she realized that the answer was no. While she loved her family and cherished the time spent with her grandchildren, Eleanor knew that she needed more than this. She needed time for herself, space to breathe, and the freedom to live her life on her own terms. The following morning, Eleanor met her friend Margaret for coffee. Margaret had faced a similar situation a few years earlier when she moved in with her son after the death of her husband. But after several months, Margaret made the difficult decision to move back into her own apartment, reclaiming her independence in the process. It wasn't easy, Margaret admitted, but it was the best decision I ever made. I realized that I could still be there for my family without losing myself in the process. Margaret's story resonated deeply with Eleanor. She realized that it was possible to strike a balance between supporting her family and maintaining her own independence. It wasn't an all-or-nothing decision. She could still be an active part of her grandchildren's lives while carving out space for herself. With Margaret's encouragement, Eleanor began to explore the idea of moving back into her own apartment. It was a daunting prospect, but one that filled her with a sense of hope and excitement. For the first time in a long while, she felt empowered to take control of her life again. 5. The profound benefits of maintaining independence. Research consistently shows that maintaining independence in old age is critical for mental, emotional, and physical well being. A study conducted by the University of Michigan found that older adults who live independently report higher levels of life satisfaction, experience fewer symptoms of depression and anxiety, and maintain stronger social connections. The ability to make decisions about how to spend one's time, where to live, and how to engage with the world is fundamental to a sense of personal fulfillment. When Eleanor finally made the decision to move out of her daughter's home and into her own apartment, she was filled with mixed emotions. There was fear of loneliness, fear of regret, but also excitement. This move represented a return to the life she once knew, a life where she was in control of her time, her space, and her choices. As she settled into her new home, Eleanor quickly rediscovered the joy of living independently. She joined a local painting class, something she had always dreamed of doing but never had the time for. She started going for long walks in the park, rekindling her love for nature. She reconnected with old friends and even made new ones at the community center. Most importantly, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. What surprised Eleanor most, however, was how her relationship with her family improved. By creating boundaries and reclaiming her autonomy, she found that the time she spent with her grandchildren became more meaningful. Without the constant pressure of caregiving, she could fully enjoy their visits and cherish the moments they shared. Her visits became filled with laughter, stories, and a deep sense of connection, something that had been missing when she lived under the same roof. 6. The paradox of distance. Growing closer by letting go. One of the most profound lessons Eleanor learned during this journey was the paradox of distance. Many people believe that being physically close to family automatically leads to emotional closeness, but what Eleanor discovered was the opposite. By creating physical space between herself and her daughter's family, she was able to foster a deeper, more meaningful connection with them. Her daughter Susan, who had initially struggled with Eleanor's decision to move out, soon came to appreciate the change. At first, I was worried, Susan confessed. I thought Mom would feel lonely or that she'd regret leaving, but now I see how much happier she is. And honestly, I think our relationship is better for it. By letting go of the daily caregiving responsibilities and creating space for herself, Eleanor was able to reconnect with her daughter on a deeper level. Their conversations became more heartfelt, their time together more intentional. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the demands of family life, Eleanor could now look forward to her visits with joy and excitement. As philosopher Khalil Gibran once said, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you." Eleanor's experience proved that sometimes creating space is the best way to grow closer. The physical distance between her and her family allowed both Eleanor and Susan to appreciate each other more, and the quality of their relationship improved as a result. 7. Redefining your golden years, embracing the freedom to be yourself. The golden years are often portrayed as a time of slowing down, of retreating from the world, and of seeking comfort within the familiar. But as Eleanor's story illustrates, these years can be so much more than that. They are a time for rediscovery, for pursuing passions long forgotten, and for living life on your own terms. For Eleanor, reclaiming her independence wasn't just about moving into her own apartment, it was about rediscovering herself. It was about finding joy in the things that made her feel alive, whether that was painting, walking in the park, or simply enjoying the peace and quiet of her own space. It was about reconnecting with her friends and her community, and most importantly, it was about embracing the freedom to be unapologetically herself. In the words of poet Mary Oliver, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? For Eleanor, the answer was clear. She chose herself. She chose her freedom, her happiness, and her joy. And in doing so, she became an inspiration not only to her family, but to everyone who knows her. Eleanor's journey is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to reclaim your independence. Whether you're 68, 78, or 88, the choices you make about how to live your life are yours and yours alone. You are not defined by the expectations of others, and you are not limited by age or circumstance. The golden years are not a time to fade into the background. They are a time to shine, to live fully, and to embrace the freedom to be yourself. Conclusion. Eleanor's story highlights a critical truth for many older adults. While family closeness is valuable, personal autonomy is equally important for maintaining emotional and mental well being. The decision to live close to your children may seem comforting at first, but without careful consideration, it can lead to the erosion of your independence, your sense of self, and ultimately your happiness. The key to a fulfilling life in your golden years lies in balance, balancing the love and connection you have with your family with the space and freedom you need to nurture your own identity. By reclaiming her independence, Eleanor was able to restore her sense of self and improve her relationships with her daughter and grandchildren. As you contemplate your own journey into the later stages of life, remember that it's never too late to take control of your destiny. Whether you choose to live independently or close to family, the most important thing is to ensure that your choices allow you to continue growing, exploring, and finding joy in life. The golden years are not about retreating, they are about rediscovering who you are and embracing the freedom to live life on your own terms. Thank you for watching the entire video. If you find these stories inspiring and motivating, please comment one. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.